Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a fascinating journey, bridging the gap between technical lighting mastery and pure artistic storytelling in portrait photography. Because let's be honest, whether you're meticulously setting up strobes in a studio or just capturing spontaneous everyday encounters out on the street, understanding how light breathes life into your subjects, well, it's absolutely everything. We've structured this explainer like a masterclass. We'll be covering avoiding common lighting mistakes, lighting darker skin tones, recreating vintage Hollywood glamour lighting, mastering the environmental portrait, and finally, finding your visual poetry.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, Avoid these lighting mistakes.
Photographer Jake Hicks makes a great point. The absolute fastest way to elevate your craft is actually by fixing the errors you might not even realize you're making. He outlines 5 classic mistakes that separate a basic snapshot from a truly professional image. We're talking about missing catch lights, underlighting from below, poor subject-to-background separation, disconnected or, messy shadows, and poor hair light placement that just spills awkwardly onto the face and creates a huge visual distraction.
Let's zero in on catch lights for a second, because the contrast is wild. Without them, a subject's eyes can look completely dark and, frankly, lifeless. They visually disconnect from the viewer. But if you hit that 10 to 2 o'clock angle, boom, you instantly inject shape and vitality. Catch lights are basically those tiny spectral reflections of your key light. To put it into perspective, filmmakers will actually digitally remove catch lights from an actor's eyes to signify that a character has died. That's how profound of a psychological trigger it is for us. Now, what if you find yourself accidentally underlighting your subject and getting that creepy 1960s horror movie effect? Well, there are 3 simple steps to immediately clean up your fill light. Usually, this underlighting happens when your fill light casts more light than your key light. So step 1, check your fill light. Step 2, turn down the power, because really, less is often more. And step 3, always match the light to your specific subject's height. This is absolutely crucial if you're photographing a tall person and then a shorter person right after on the exact same set.
Moving right along to Section 2, Lighting darker skin tones.
Building on those foundational rules, beauty photographer Lindsay Adler emphasizes that whether you're using a V-flat or a reflector, your lighting must be a deliberate choice, not just an afterthought. She notes that small adjustments can make a really big difference. You see, darker skin tones naturally absorb more light, so just a slight tweak in where you place your fill light can make a massive difference in keeping the image from looking flat and preserving those important facial details. To prevent deep complexions from looking gray or muddy, she recommends 3 core focus areas to maintain depth, vibrancy, and detail. First up, dial in manual white balance. Never rely on auto white balance, because it often cools down rich skin tones way too much. Set it manually. Second, choose your quality of light intentionally. And third, use white V-flats or reflectors to bounce light back onto the face, which keeps those shadows nice, rich, and flattering. Speaking of the quality of light, you have a really cool choice here. You can use soft light, think large umbrellas or softboxes, for a beautifully smooth, polished, and even glow. Or you can opt for hard light using bare strobes or silver reflectors to dramatically define the facial structure. Soft light gives you a gentle transition between highlights and shadows, while hard light creates sharp shadows and bold highlights. And since highlights play a huge role in defining features on darker skin tones, throwing a hard, sharp light right on the cheekbones can give you incredibly striking, high-contrast results.
All right, let's turn up the drama with Section 3, Vintage Hollywood Glamour Lighting.
Photographer J.P. Morgan actually breaks down the iconic 1930s style of George Hurrell. This is the guy who photographed absolute legends like Joan Crawford and Humphrey Bogart using these heavy, unforgettable shadows. And guess what? You can recreate this impactful aesthetic today. You just have to strictly control 4 elements. First, positioning. Use a high-angle butterfly or 45-degree Rembrandt setup to really shape the face. Second, quality. You want strong, hard, narrow light, which you can get using grids on modern LEDs. Third, exposure. Go for a bright exposure, maybe around ISO 1240 and f4.0. And finally, shadows. Embrace those heavy shadows. Just make sure you balance them with a background light for clean visual separation.
Which brings us to Section 4, the environmental portrait. Now we're pivoting away from the pure mechanics of light and diving right into artistic storytelling with Arnold Newman, who was widely considered the father of environmental portraiture. By definition, environmental portraiture is using a carefully framed and lit setting along with its contents to symbolize an individual's life, profession, and personality.
Newman totally pioneered this approach. He famously placed composer Igor Stravinsky next to a grand piano lid that perfectly resembled a gargantuan musical note. So it's not just about throwing random objects in the background, the surroundings have to actively symbolize the person and deepen our entire understanding of who they are.
There's a famous quote from Newman that I just love. "We do not take pictures with our cameras, but with our hearts and minds." This really beautifully humanizes everything we've talked about so far. It reminds us why we even bother mastering these technical rules in the first place. Newman was incredibly meticulous. He used a massive large format camera and a tripod to capture every tiny detail. But he never forgot that the camera is literally just a tool. The real image, that comes from within the photographer.
And that leads us perfectly into our final segment, Section 5, Finding Your Visual Poetry.
This is the point where the rigid technical rules sort of fade away, and personal expression really takes center stage. Let's look at Petros Koutsabasis. He relies on super simple gear and everyday street encounters to create these deeply poetic images. He says, "With lime twigs you may capture birds, yet you never capture their singing. I try to create a photograph which possesses elements of visual poetry." Drawing inspiration from literature, he hunts for these magical, fleeting moments in everyday passers-by. He's not just capturing their physical form, he's trying to capture their singing.
Meanwhile, we have Lisa McCord, who uses her lens to document a complex Arkansas cotton farm. She proves the photography is an unparalleled tool for exploring memory, home, and history. McCord says, the project hopes to create a genuine empathetic encounter between the viewer and the subjects. Her work blends personal storytelling with profound imagery to explore the intricate socioeconomic structures of the rural South. It's all about creating this deeply empathetic bridge between us, the viewers, and the people she's photographing.
And then there's Josephine Sacabo, who takes a highly introspective approach. She uses light to translate poetry into this dreamlike, surreal world of constructed beauty. Speaking about her subjects, she says, "I hope they have done justice to their sources, and that they will, for a moment, stay the shadows of contentment too short-lived." Her work proves that lighting doesn't just have to be a clinical record of reality. It can be an ethereal manifestation of the written word, connecting the viewer to a real sense of transcendence and emotional resonance.
So what story will your light tell today? Now that you've got the technical foundation and the artistic inspiration under your belt, the only question left is how you're going to shape the light in your very next portrait. Are you going to craft a high-contrast vintage glamour shot? Will you pull back to capture the unique environment that defines your subject? Or will you walk out onto the street and look for everyday visual poetry? Whatever you end up choosing, just remember that the light is literally in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope it sparks something incredible in your next shoot.